Who brought the dog?
Ghostbusters, the film that left an indelible mark on 1980s pop culture, is not only a piece of entertainment, but also a symbol of an entire era. The story revolves around three struggling scientists, Peter Venkman, Ray Stantz, and Egon Spengler, along with rookie Winston Zeddemore, outsiders who suddenly become a professional ghost hunting team in the heart of New York. They must confront Gozer, a destructive deity from another realm, and Walter Peck, a rigid EPA official always seeking to thwart them. From a ridiculed job, they unexpectedly transform into ordinary heroes, delivering a powerful message that anyone, even those overlooked by society, can stand up and save the world. This spirit has kept Ghostbusters alive, turning its fandom into a phenomenon spanning generations. Yet, behind the laughter, behind the unforgettable tune of Who You Gonna Call, lies a backstage full of danger and chaos, uncontrolled fires, actors fainting in monster suits, noisy legal battles, and even the haunting presence of a real ghost. Here are the 20 most shocking and unbelievable truths about Ghostbusters, 1984. Backstage secrets that nearly prevented this classic film from ever being born. 1. The idea came from Dan Aykroyd's genuine passion for the supernatural. Ghostbusters didn't come about by chance. It stemmed from Dan Aykroyd's burning passion for the supernatural. From a young age, he was captivated by the spiritual world, reading stacks of books about paranormal phenomena and believing that ghosts truly existed somewhere. In particular, Aykroyd's grandfather had once invented a radio device to communicate with the afterlife, planting in his mind the notion that humans could absolutely connect with the other side. This strange foundation led to the birth of Ghostbusters. In the early 1980s, Aykroyd and John Belushi sat down, sketching the first outlines of a story about modern ghost hunters. After Belushi's sudden death, Harold Ramis stepped in, working with Aykroyd to refine the script into a story that was both humorous and eerie. An interesting detail is that the scene where the Ghostbusters are thrown into jail was filmed in an old prison that Aykroyd believed was genuinely haunted, making the set's atmosphere eerily unsettling. This belief in the supernatural seeped into every line of dialogue in the film. Egon Spengler warns, "Never cross the streams like a mystical taboo." Winston exclaims, "I've seen things that would make you lose faith in God," a line that echoes Aykroyd's obsession with the supernatural. And Peter Venkman, with his half-joking, half-serious tone, plants in the audience's mind the feeling that the line between farce and nightmare is very thin. Notably, actress Beverly D'Angelo once shared that she lived in a house Aykroyd had stayed in, which she believed was haunted by the ghost of singer Cass Elliot. These supernatural experiences became the invisible fuel driving Aykroyd to turn Ghostbusters into a comedy horror film with a distinct spiritual imprint. From this belief in ghosts, Aykroyd wrote a draft so wild it could have swallowed Hollywood whole. 2. The original Ghostbusters script was a $300 million cosmic blockbuster never seen before. Initially, Ghostbusters was not envisioned as the supernatural comedy tied to New York that audiences loved. Dan Aykroyd, coming from a family obsessed with mysticism and parapsychology, let his imagination soar to the cosmos. In the first draft, the Ghostbusters were an interplanetary force, traveling through dimensions using cutting-edge technology to battle armies of ghosts flooding across planets. The settings spanned from one world to another, with interdimensional portals constantly opening, and each scene demanded special effects far beyond the cinematic capabilities of the time. The cost to bring this vision to life? Over $300 million in 1983, an insane figure, many times larger than the blockbuster hits of the era. Studios reading the script could only shake their heads. This was a financial bomb. An unfilmable sci-fi dream. Ghostbusters seemed doomed from the start, if not for Harold Ramis. He stepped in, and together with Aykroyd, they cut nearly all the fantastical elements, bringing the story back to the reality of New York, turning failed scientists into a small ghost hunting team in the heart of the city. This decision saved the project, but opened another, even riskier gamble. The film's fate now depended entirely on a man who never cared for contracts or rules. 3. Bill Murray joined the film with just a nod, no paperwork. It sounds unbelievable, but Bill Murray stepped into Ghostbusters without signing a single contract. Columbia Pictures, director Ivan Reitman, and the entire production team knew his unpredictable nature, but still took the risk. The only thing Murray offered was a verbal promise. He would join if the studio funded his personal project, The Razor's Edge. And then, after that promise, Murray vanished, heading to France, leaving the entire crew in anxious anticipation. During the pre-production days, no one was sure if he would return. No binding paperwork, no legal proof, just a fragile hope pinned on a star known for his carefree attitude. Columbia was tense. Reitman lost sleep constantly, because if Murray didn't show up, the entire project would collapse like a joke. And then, on the morning of the first shooting day, he appeared, as calm as if there was never anything to worry about. Without needing a tight script, Murray improvised most of his lines, turning Peter Venkman into an iconic, sarcastic and charming figure, breathing life into the entire film. Ghostbusters took shape in that moment through a reckless gamble no one dared believe would succeed. But while Murray gave the film its soul, another nightmare was brewing inside the massive suit on set. 4. The actor in the Stay Puft suit fainted from heat and suffocation. On screen, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is a giant, white, goofy figure, both funny and endearing. But to create that image, stuntmen had to wear heavy foam and rubber suits, thick and completely sealed. The set's lights blazed down like fire, turning the inside of the suit into a giant oven. The heat couldn't escape. Sweat poured endlessly, breathing grew laboured, and the cramped space squeezed every heartbeat. Some tried to endure, but one stuntman collapsed mid-shoot. Fainting in the darkness, they were trapped in the scorching, foul-smelling suit. The crew panicked, halting everything, rushing to pull the actor out of the real-life nightmare. A moment's delay could have turned that scene into a deadly tragedy. Stay Puft brought laughs on screen, but the price was paid in sweat, effort, and even lives. And as the set was still reeling from that incident, another legal storm erupted, dragging the entire crew into an unprecedented uproar. 5. The theme song sparked a high-profile lawsuit. In 1984, just days before the film's release, Ray Parker Jr. was given an impossible task: write a catchy theme song tied to the name Ghostbusters. Under immense pressure, he drew inspiration from a TV commercial for pest control, and in a last-minute rush, "Who You Gonna Call?" was born. The melody exploded, climbing straight to the charts, becoming an anthem of the decade. But that success brought trouble. The band Huey Lewis and the News accused the song of being too similar to their hit I Want a New Drug. The issue quickly escalated into a lawsuit, forcing Parker Jr. and the studio to face court. Though the two sides eventually settled, the conflict lingered for years, reigniting when Lewis revealed details of the compensation. The song saved Ghostbusters, turning it into a cultural phenomenon, but also plunged the crew into an endless cycle of litigation. And as the music disputes were still simmering, another iconic element of the film faced the threat of being erased. 6. The No Ghost logo was nearly banned due to plagiarism accusations involving Casper. You may not remember the film's plot details, but you surely know the No Ghost logo, the round, white ghost crossed out in red, an image that transcended the screen to become part of pop culture. But as the Ghostbusters craze took off, this logo nearly faced extinction due to a shocking lawsuit. Harvey Comics, the company behind Casper the Friendly Ghost, claimed the logo was too similar to Fatso, one of the 3 famous ghost uncles in their franchise. Fatso also had a round body, short arms, and a cartoonish, goofy face, making the accusation far from baseless. If the lawsuit succeeded, Columbia Pictures would lose all rights to posters, merchandise, and even the global marketing campaign could collapse in an instant. Ghostbusters would lose its most powerful marketing weapon. Lawyers dove into a tense legal battle, dissecting every sketch and design to prove the logo was independent. Thankfully, the case eventually fizzled out, avoiding a massive precedent. The logo not only survived, but outshone Casper to become one of the most immortal logos in film history. And while no ghost preserved the brand's soul, another bizarre incident stirred up the set. 7. John Candy wanted to turn the character into an eccentric German-speaking man with 2 hunting dogs. Louis Tully, the goofy, clumsy, yet subtly charming neighbour, was not originally written for Rick Moranis. Columbia had their eyes on John Candy, a top comedy star at the time. Candy agreed to consider the role, but instead of accepting the character as written, proposed a series of bizarre ideas that left the entire crew stunned. In Candy's version, Louis was no longer a lost accountant, but an eccentric man with a heavy German accent, always accompanied by 2 giant shepherd dogs. He even wanted to rewrite scenes to give the dogs screen time, interacting with ghosts and contributing to the battle. The idea was too outlandish, beyond even Aykroyd and Reitman's wildest imaginations. They had to reject it outright, and Candy dropped the role. The part then went to Rick Moranis, who turned Louis into a classic character with his natural improvisation and charm. Once again, a casting change saved the film from unforeseen oddity. But not everyone was as fortunate as Moranis, as another actor faced a bitter shock upon arriving on set. 8. Winston Zeddemore's role was brutally cut just before filming began. In early drafts, Winston Zeddemore was written as a core pillar equal to Venkman, Ray, and Egon. He appeared from the start, with a clear military background, bringing a grounded perspective to the ghost hunting world from an everyman viewpoint. Ernie Hudson, upon receiving the role, was thrilled, believing it was a life-changing opportunity. But when the final script was handed out just before shooting, everything fell apart. Winston's role was slashed heavily, appearing only halfway through the film, with key lines reassigned to Bill Murray to centre Peter Venkman. Hudson was stunned, deeply shaken, but remained professional, stepping onto the set with a far smaller role than expected. Ghostbusters became a phenomenon, but for Hudson, the memory of the film left a lingering scar. And as that disappointment simmered, another shock from the set nearly buried the project from the start. 9. Coca-Cola nearly killed Ghostbusters when they acquired Columbia. In the early 1980s, Columbia Pictures agreed to fund a $30 million funny ghost hunting film. But fate was cruel. Just as the project began, Coca-Cola acquired Columbia. The new executives from the beverage giant didn't believe in this gamble. To them, Ghostbusters was an expensive joke with no chance of profit, and cancelling the film was put on the table. Ivan Reitman and Dan Aykroyd had to bear the brunt. They shouted, persuaded, and proved by every means that Ghostbusters had the potential to become a phenomenon. The internal battle lasted weeks, with the crew on edge every day, fearing the project would be strangled in its cradle. In the end, thanks to Reitman's persistence, the project survived, but the scars from the Coca-Cola storm remained vivid in the minds of those involved. Escaping death at the hands of a corporate giant, Ghostbusters found luck through an unprecedented marketing move that quickly turned into a nationwide craze. 10. The 1-800 hotline in the trailer sparked a phone frenzy across America. In 1984, the Ghostbusters trailer aired on TV with a detail that stunned audiences. A 1-800 number displayed clearly with the tagline, "Call us when ghosts haunt you." Viewers thought it was just a movie gimmick, but the truth was different. The number was real. When dialed, fans heard the voices of Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd as Venkman and Stantz saying they were busy, catching ghosts. The phenomenon spread across America. The hotline received over 1,000 calls per hour, crashing the system repeatedly. In an era without the internet or social media, Ghostbusters accidentally created a rare viral marketing campaign, making the film the talk of the nation. From a playful phone call, Ghostbusters strode into pop culture. But that joy nearly faded, as even the opening scene was threatened with removal. 11. The library ghost opening scene was deemed too scary to keep. One of Ghostbusters' most iconic scenes is the library ghost in the New York Public Library, the opening that made theaters scream and laugh. But few know this scene was nearly cut by Columbia's executives. They feared it was too terrifying, driving family audiences away and ruining the goal of making Ghostbusters a mainstream comedy. Ivan Reitman fought back fiercely. He knew the film needed a strong opening. Real fear, instantly diffused by laughter. The test screening proved him right. When the library ghost transformed, audiences screamed, but then burst into laughter as the Ghostbusters fled in chaos. That was the golden formula. Horror mixed with humour, tense yet relieving. And Ghostbusters became legendary from that moment. The opening scene survived, but the backstage fears didn't end, as even the film's cutest ghost became a nightmare for the crew. 12. Slimer cost over $300,000 and stank so bad the crew nicknamed it Onion Head Slimer. The gluttonous, goofy, mischievous green ghost seems like a simple comedic character, but behind it was a technical and financial nightmare. To create Slimer's form, the crew spent over $300,000, a massive sum in 1984, to build a sophisticated animatronic. Inside the machine were complex servo systems, operated by multiple people to control every facial twitch and clumsy movement. The worst part wasn't the machine, but the slime coating it. Made from food and chemicals, it quickly rotted under the blazing set lights, emitting a foul stench. No one could stand the acrid smell, leading the crew to nickname Slimer Onion Head. Bill Murray once wryly said, "Being slimed was like falling into a trash can full of spoiled sushi." On screen, Slimer was an unforgettable laugh, but behind the camera, it was torture for the crew. And as everyone grimaced at the unbearable stench, another shock hit right in the middle of New York streets. 13. Isaac Asimov stormed the set in a rage during a New York traffic jam. While Ghostbusters filmed at 55 Central Park West, the entire central New York area fell into chaos. Streets were blocked, traffic jams stretched to Columbus Circle. Car horns blared, residents grew frustrated, and amid that irritation, an unexpected figure appeared. Legendary sci-fi writer Isaac Asimov. Asimov lived nearby, but that day he was no friendly neighbour. He stormed the set in a fury, berating the crew for turning the neighbourhood into a traffic battlefield. The atmosphere was tense to the point of suffocation. Dan Aykroyd, a huge Asimov fan, rushed to apologise profusely, praising his work. Only then did the anger gradually subside. Ghostbusters shook New York, not just in the film, but in real life. And as the streets returned to calm, another bizarre scene left an unforgettable question mark for audiences for decades. 14. The ghost seduction subplot with Ray was cut, leaving only a shocking scene. In the original script, Ray Stantz and Winston Zeddemore had a separate adventure at a haunted fort. There, Ray met a female ghost, and in a strange scene, she appeared and helped him undress. The entire subplot was fully filmed, with sets, costumes, and dialogue. But during editing, it was completely cut. All that remained was a fleeting scene in a montage. Ray lying in bed, eyes rolling back in pleasure as a vague, ghostly figure appeared above. No explanation, no context. The scene baffled millions of viewers. It became one of Ghostbusters' most mysterious details, debated for years. Was it a dream, a joke, or truly a one-night ghostly affair? The cut subplot became a backstage legend, leaving a puzzling gap in a seemingly perfect film. And as that strange scene sparked debate, the Ghostbusters set Dove into a frantic race against time. 15. Boss Films was built in 10 months just to save Ghostbusters. In the early 1980s, Hollywood's special effects were dominated by one name: Industrial Light and Magic, ILM. But when Ghostbusters needed them, ILM was booked with Return of the Jedi and Indiana Jones. The risk was clear. Ghostbusters would have no effects to complete it. In that critical moment, Richard Edlund, a former ILM member, made a bold move. He founded a new studio from scratch just for Ghostbusters. Boss Films was born in record time, assembling a team of artists, technicians, and creators working tirelessly for 10 months. They created nearly 200 effect shots, proton beams, the library ghost, demon dogs, slime, all invented from scratch, tested repeatedly, and finished under tight deadlines. Some scenes were delivered just days before the premiere. It was a crazy gamble, but it succeeded. Boss Films not only saved Ghostbusters, but became one of the 1980s top effects studios, paving the way for hits like Die Hard and Batman Returns. But even with effects secured, an unexpected improvisation became the magic that elevated Ghostbusters to legend. 16. Rick Moranis improvised an entire monologue that stunned everyone. In the script, Louis Tully was just a minor character, a clumsy, goofy neighbour. But Rick Moranis turned this small role into one of Ghostbusters' immortal highlights. In the scene where Tully hosts a party and tries to impress guests, Moranis ignored the script. Instead, he improvised an entire monologue, rattling off details about income, taxes, and medical expenses for each guest with uncanny accuracy. The scene became a laugh riot, with the crew holding their breath to avoid ruining the shot with laughter. It was a moment where Moranis' improvisational genius shone, turning Louis Tully from a forgettable character into one audiences remembered forever. And as Louis became iconic through that spontaneity, another detail was cleverly planted, weaving through every frame to lead audiences to the final shock. 17. The Stay Puft silhouette was planted throughout the film from start to finish. The appearance of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man was a shocking twist that left audiences stunned and thrilled. But in reality, the crew had prepared viewers' minds beforehand. In Dinah Barrett's kitchen, a Stay Puft marshmallow bag is clearly visible in the corner. When the Ghostbusters meet, a Stay Puft billboard looms faintly in the New York street background. These small details subtly planted seeds in the audience's subconscious, so when Ray accidentally chose the Destroyer form, Stay Puft's appearance was both surprising and eerily fitting. It was storytelling finesse, planting seeds early, so when they sprouted, the entire theatre erupted in excitement. And while those seeds were cleverly woven into the film, in real life, an ordinary location unexpectedly became a pilgrimage site for fans. 18. Hook and Ladder. 8. Firehouse became a pilgrimage site for Ghostbusters fans. The Ghostbusters headquarters in the film was just an ordinary building. Hook and Ladder 8, a firehouse in New York's Tribeca. But since Ghostbusters' release, it has become a pilgrimage site for millions of fans worldwide. People come to take photos, leave flowers, marshmallows, toys, and even plaques honouring the fictional Ghostbusters. After 9/11, the firefighters at Hook and Ladder 8 became real-life heroes. At that time, the Ghostbusters logo hanging outside wasn't just a movie nod, but a symbol of New York's resilient spirit. From a film set, Hook and Ladder 8 transcended to become part of collective memory. But while the public celebrated the film, critics initially showed no kindness toward Ghostbusters. 19. Critics mocked Ghostbusters as a noisy, soulless cartoon. When it premiered, Ghostbusters wasn't warmly received by critics. Many called it a noisy cartoon, a flashy effects spectacle lacking depth and destined to fade quickly. Those cold reviews flooded newspapers, making Columbia fear the film would flop disastrously. But audiences reacted the opposite way. They lined up around theatres, watching it repeatedly, turning Ghostbusters into the biggest box office hit of 1984 even surpassing Indiana Jones. That truth forced critics to reconsider, admitting the film touched something greater than their initial harsh words. And amid that storm of love and criticism, a personal ghost continued to haunt Ghostbusters forever. 20. Slimer was actually John Belushi's eternal incarnation after his sudden death. Dan Aykroyd never hid it. Slimer was Belushi's ghost. When John Belushi, his close friend and Blues Brothers co-star, died suddenly in 1982, Aykroyd was devastated and determined to keep his friend present somehow. Slimer was designed as Belushi's spiritual echo, gluttonous, chaotic, mischievous, yet universally lovable. In every frame, Slimer reminds audiences of a star gone too soon, but living on in cinematic memory. Belushi never got to wear a Ghostbusters suit, but he became an immortal Ghostbuster in his own way, as a slimy green ghost, never leaving the party. Ghostbusters deserves to be called a masterpiece for perfectly blending humour and horror, creating a one-of-a-kind experience. The film became a cultural icon, leaving behind characters and images that endure through time. The effects, music, and performances all reached their peak, making every frame unforgettable. Over 4 decades later, Ghostbusters' allure remains intact, proving it is an immortal legend. If you found this video engaging, please hit like to support us, and don't forget to share and subscribe to not miss other thrilling behind-the-scenes stories.